Picture yourself suddenly stirring awake in an utterly foreign realm. The heavens stretch out in that familiar, endless azure, yet the surroundings pulse with an eerie menace and skewed scales. Towering trees loom like colossal sentinels, their massive barks akin to rugged granite columns, while their foliage sifts sunlight into emerald hues, weaving a muggy, oppressive woodland. The atmosphere resonates not with the chirps of contemporary avians, but with calls from beings that whisper of a profoundly primordial era. Imagine being whisked away to the era of dinosaurs, stripped of any decent attire, weapons, or gadgets. Nothing but your vulnerable human frame, entirely mismatched for a world forged over countless millennia of isolated natural development. The pressing query looms, would survival even be possible? Before thinking about the great predators, you must first understand the environment itself. During the Mesozoic era, which spanned about 186 million years, Earth was radically different. In the Jurassic and Cretaceous, vast inland seas covered entire regions. The climate was warmer, with no polar ice caps. The terrain was blanketed in thick, shadowy woodlands, teeming with conifers, cycads, and ferns. Grass, a staple of today's vistas, hadn't yet emerged on the scene. A person flung back to that epoch would encounter no trace of the customary meadows or panoramic views. The atmosphere also showed striking differences. Paleoclimatology studies indicate that oxygen levels were sometimes slightly higher than today, and at other times dangerously low. These fluctuations directly affected the metabolism of prehistoric animals and could cause rapid fatigue, dizziness, or breathing difficulties in a human. Breathing in that world would not be as simple as filling your lungs. The body would have to adapt to an unstable gas mixture loaded with higher carbon dioxide levels than modern organisms can tolerate. The air was only the first obstacle. Global temperatures were higher, and humidity in tropical regions made the climate suffocating. Without filtered drinking water, every sip from a river or lake could carry unknown microorganisms capable of causing fatal diseases for which we have no natural immunity. Now add the inhabitants of the era. Creatures dozens of meters long roamed plains and forests, while serrated-toothed predators lurked in every shadow. Simply walking in search of food or shelter would place a human in the middle of a merciless food chain where Homo sapiens never belonged. This is where our journey begins, testing the hypothesis of human survival in the dinosaur world. A scientific and imaginative exercise based on the latest paleontological evidence, revealing not only the grandeur of these creatures, but also the vulnerability of our own bodies. The first and most inescapable question: could you even survive the first day? Awakening in the heart of the Cretaceous. The initial shock upon waking would come not from a roar or an ambush predator, but from the landscape itself. Earth was fundamentally different from the one we know. Continents, still drifting, had strange, incomplete shapes. The Atlantic Ocean was only beginning to open, slowly separating Africa from South America. In the north, a vast inland sea covered much of North America, turning regions that are deserts today into extensive coastal zones filled with lagoons and prehistoric mangroves. The climate was oppressive. With no permanent polar ice, sea levels were much higher, and the atmosphere carried more carbon dioxide than we could endure without consequences. This created a natural greenhouse effect, with global average temperatures up to 10 degrees higher than today, producing dense tropical forests even in latitudes now temperate. Constant humidity shrouded plains and valleys in thick fog. For a modern human, the combination of extreme heat and saturated air would be a silent enemy, capable of causing severe dehydration in hours. The vegetation would also deliver a biological culture shock. Grasses and meadows simply did not exist. Instead, the ground was covered by broad-leaved giant ferns, short, sturdy cycads, and towering conifers like cathedral pillars. Araucaria trees dominated entire forests, while the first flowering plants were only timidly emerging, far from today's diversity. For someone accustomed to open spaces and modern fruits, the scene would be both magnificent and utterly alien. But this beauty concealed constant dangers. Active volcanoes dotted the map, releasing toxic gases and altering local climate in days. Intense tectonic activity could trigger devastating earthquakes or tsunamis in inland seas. Tropical storms were frequent and far more violent than today's. Prolonged thunder, torrential rains, winds capable of uprooting entire trees. Without shelter, A human would be completely exposed to natural forces against which they could offer little resistance. Even walking in this environment would be a challenge. In some areas, waterlogged soil acted as a natural trap. Prehistoric mosquitoes swarmed swamps, and narrow paths through dense vegetation could lead to deadly areas without warning. Every step would be a gamble between survival and discovering yet another insurmountable obstacle. In the end, before even encountering a dinosaur, the planet itself would have declared its hostility. The Cretaceous world was not made for us. Surviving would mean fighting the environment itself every minute, without respite. Breathing, an act so simple and automatic for us, could become one of the greatest challenges in the dinosaur world. The Mesozoic atmosphere was not constant. It underwent significant changes over tens of millions of years, affecting not only climate, but the metabolism of Earth's inhabitants. Studies based on air bubbles trapped in minerals and isotopic analysis of fossils show that in the Jurassic, oxygen concentrations reached 23–26%, higher than today's 21%. This supported colossal animals like Brachiosaurs and enabled gigantism in insects, scorpions, and dragonflies. In the late Cretaceous, the time of Tyrannosaurus rex, oxygen dropped to 15–17% in some periods. For the human body, this difference would be brutal. In low oxygen regions, a modern human would experience symptoms similar to high-altitude sickness: constant shortness of breath, headaches, dizziness, rapid fatigue, even loss of consciousness. Simple exertion like running or climbing could collapse muscles in minutes. Today's mountaineers need weeks to acclimate in the Himalayas. Imagine adapting to an atmosphere that varied by geological period. Another complicating factor was elevated carbon dioxide, sometimes 5 times higher than today. For plants, it fueled growth, explaining the lush forests. For animals, including us, it posed a silent risk. Prolonged exposure could cause mental confusion, accelerated heart rate, and in extreme cases, asphyxiation. Warm, humid air would further hinder breathing. Inhaling deeply would feel like filling lungs with stifling vapor, making body heat dissipation difficult and raising the risk of hyperthermia. Nor can we forget invisible microorganisms. The air carried spores, fungi, and bacteria to which we have no immunity. A single breath could trigger lethal respiratory infections. Thus, before facing serrated teeth or crushing tails, the greatest enemy would be the air itself. In the dinosaur world, every breath could be a battle for survival. Food and water. In the modern world, surviving days without food is possible. Without water, unthinkable. Now picture yourself in the Cretaceous, surrounded by lush forests and flowing rivers, yet with no guarantee that any resource is safe for human consumption. The first instinct would be to seek plants, but disappointment would come quickly. Most familiar species simply did not exist. Grasses had not evolved, no wheat, corn, rice, or other grains. Modern fruits were absent. No apples, oranges, bananas. At best, primitive flowering plants were beginning to appear, but their fruits were likely inedible. The landscape was dominated by giant ferns, cycads, and conifers adapted to prehistoric herbivores, not the delicate human digestive system. Eating unknown leaves or seeds could be fatal. Hunting small animals would be an alternative, but without tools, success would be minimal. Insects or small reptiles might provide some protein, but capture would be difficult and risky, insufficient for the energy demands of a body under extreme stress. Finding water would be no less dangerous. Rivers and lakes teemed with unknown microorganisms, parasites, and bacteria against which we have no immunity. A single sip could cause severe infections, fatal diarrhea, or accelerated dehydration. Without boiling or filtration, every water source was a biological roulette. There were also aquatic predators. Drinking at a river could mean encountering a giant crocodilian, or in coastal areas, mosasaurs or plesiosaurs. Simply kneeling at the water's edge would put a human at risk of being hunted. Apparent abundance of food and water was in fact a trap. Everything seemed available, yet almost nothing was truly accessible to a human organism. Hunger and thirst, silent, relentless enemies, would likely kill before a dinosaur had the chance. Predators, even if you found some edible plants or relatively safe water, the greatest danger still lurked. The late Cretaceous was filled with highly specialized hunters perfected by millions of years of evolution to pursue, capture, and kill prey far larger and stronger than any human. First to mind is Tyrannosaurus rex, the apex predator of North America. With teeth up to 30 cm, bone-crushing bite force, and sharp binocular vision, recent studies suggest it could reach 20-25 km/h. A human might sprint 45 km/h briefly, but uneven terrain and the need to carry supplies would make escape nearly impossible. But T-Rex was not alone. Raptors and other dromaeosaurids hunted in packs, using social intelligence and coordination to corner prey. Under 2 meters tall, more agile, armed with 6 centimeters curved claws, they were lethal to an unarmed human. Jurassic predators like allosaurus were ambush hunters, exploiting dense vegetation. The human body is wholly inadequate here. Our senses are not calibrated to detect 6 to 12 meter predators from afar or interpret subtle danger signals. Their hearing and smell were far superior. They could sense you before you noticed them. At night, our limited vision would heighten risk, as many carnivores had superior night vision. The odds are grim. An unarmed, solitary human in open terrain against these predators would have minimal chances. A sudden attack could be fatal in seconds. As formidable as predators were, the massive herbivores also presented serious threats. Brachiosaurus, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Ankylosaurus. They were not hunters, but their colossal size and defensive behaviors made close proximity dangerous. Brachiosaurus, over 20 meters long and up to 60 tons, dominated Jurassic forests. A casual step could crush a human. Triceratops had meter-long horns and a bony frill used for active defense. Stegosaurus's tail spikes could pierce bone. Ankylosaurus, armored and wielding a tail club capable of shattering predator bones, was a walking fortress. Yet herbivores could also offer indirect protection, forming natural barriers against carnivores. Staying near a herd might allow discreet movement away from active hunting zones. The strategy would be to read their behavior, maintain distance, and use their presence for cover. Size did not determine lethality. Prehistoric mosquitoes, ticks, and scorpions could transmit diseases to which we have no immunity. A single bite could lead to high fever, systemic infection, or death in days. Water and soil carried unknown bacteria, fungi, and protozoans. A minor scrape could become fatal. Survival would require extreme caution, avoiding stagnant water, resting in high dry areas, learning insect patterns. To last beyond a few days, shelter was essential, but improvising without tools was nearly impossible. Dense forests offered material, but little that could be worked. Swamp proximity attracted parasites. High ground reduced flood risk, but was not always available. Frequent natural fires, tropical storms with winds over 150 km/h, active volcanoes spewing acid rain and toxic gases constantly threatened any refuge. Even if you survived months, the 10-15 kilometer asteroid that struck 66 million years ago would end everything. Global dust cloud blocked sunlight, triggering an impact winter, halting photosynthesis and collapsing the food chain. Fires, tsunamis, toxic gases, sudden cold. No improvised shelter could withstand this global catastrophe. Considering every factor, unstable atmosphere, inevitable hunger and thirst, ferocious predators, colossal herbivores, lethal microorganisms, fires, storms, volcanoes, and finally the asteroid, a human alone would barely survive a week in the dinosaur era. Our bodies, adapted to modern environments, are ill-equipped. Every breath, sip, or step a threat. Even human intelligence and creativity would have clear limits in such an alien, hostile ecosystem. Extreme luck, constant vigilance, and perfect strategy would still fall short long-term. The dinosaur age was not made for us. That world was built for giants, predators, and unstoppable natural forces. Surviving even the first day would be extraordinarily difficult. Science and logic make this clear. This imaginative analysis reveals not only the grandeur of the prehistoric world, but our own fragility. Survival then was not a matter of individual courage or intelligence. It was simply having the wrong body at the wrong time.